Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Yeah, Jason and I were talking about a television series, actually two of them. One called Maverick, back in the late 1950s. James Garner, real name James Bum Garner, Bumgarner, changed it to James Garner. Great series. And we're talking about how even back then, it was set in the West, St. Louis, Texas, and Louisiana, New Orleans. And even back then, they showed the corrupt sheriffs, the corrupt politicians, the voting scandals, and just on and on and on. It's the same thing we've got today. And this was filmed in the late 1950s. And James Garner is the same guy that you've come to love as Jim Rockford of the Rockford Files. And he's my favorite actor. He really is. He did it without profanity. He did it without scandals. James Rockford. And Brett Maverick, played by James Garner. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason's engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Well, I was up late last night. I was looking at an explosion. And
yeah. Wow.
In Beirut. And so, yesterday they said, or last night they said, well, it looks like there's about 7 people killed, 10 people killed, maybe hundreds injured. And now it looks like over 100 people were killed and maybe 4,000 hurt. I don't think those numbers are right. And they say that this was something that happened, a warehouse fire that ignited 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate that was being stored. It was allegedly about the size of a 3-kiloton blast. So what is a kiloton? Well, kilo is 1,000. So 3 kiloton would be 3,000 tons of what? TNT, trinitrotoluene. So equivalent of a 3,000 ton blast of TNT. Well, I don't think so. I think that it wasn't one blast. I think it was multiple blasts. And one of them surely looked like a nuclear detonation to me because it wasn't a boom. It was a high-speed reaction, like the ones that you saw if you looked at videos or images of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The United States dropped two atomic bombs on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I met one of the guys who was the weaponeer. I met him. I talked to him. His name was Jeppers, Colonel Jeppers. He was the weaponeer of the bomber called Boxcar. And he was the guy who decided what the final target was going to be. And by the way, I asked him the question you'd all want to know. Would you do it again? He said, oh, absolutely. So this blast in Beirut on Tuesday, I'm pretty sure had multiple explosions. I'm pretty sure that it's a lot more to it than just some guy with a welding torch or a plasma torch or a arc welder or a MIG welder that caused this massive destruction. And I have a feeling there's going to be way more than 100 people considered dead. And I believe that some people are not even going to find them. I think that they were vaporized. So if you get a chance to look at the horrific scene. Oh, even the president, by the way, says he thinks it was a bomb. And no kidding. No kidding. So Guineith, I'd rather not say who we think did it, and I'll tell you why. We'll be thrown off the air. Okay, so I got your email. Please don't mention who you think did it. It would be, no, they take it out on us. USA Prepares. What are your thoughts, Guineith, about this?
Okay. I think that there's a number of different theories as to what it could have been. I think that it was almost certainly a Hezbollah weapon stash, okay, meaning explosive stash, that they were, piling all different sorts of explosives together, gunpowder, that's the quote-unquote fireworks that they mentioned, and I think probably nitroglycerine, and I think that I would agree with you that there was probably at least one suitcase nuke there, and that they had all of this, explosive stuff all piled together in the same place, which, by the way, if you ever have anything to do with explosives, you should never ever pile different types of explosives together in the one place. And you should certainly never, ever, ever pile nitroglycerine near anything else at all, because as it ages, it gets very, very unstable. It sweats. And literally, if a fly lands on it, it's going to go off once it gets old enough. It can literally spontaneously explode, and I'm not even kidding. And it looks as if the so-called ammonium nitrate, which I think was probably nitroglycerine, was there since at least 2014. So that's quite a few years. And I don't know if that would get into the aging phase of nitroglycerine, but I think that it could have been just the unstable nitroglycerine that set the rest of it going, Vincent. That although it could have been sabotage, it could have been an act of terrorism, but at this stage there's really no way of knowing for sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah. At the university level, first and second year university chemistry students know how to make nitroglycerin. They've learned how to do that. And I don't want anybody to think I'm advocating making explosive. I absolutely, positively am not. I want to make sure that's absolutely clear. I am not advocating making explosives. There's way too many explosives on the planet already. And is there a lot of good that comes out of it? No, I don't think so. So it used to be in television, when I was growing up, you would see, and I'm not talking about cartoons, I'm talking about television programs that would show the use of dynamite. There'd be a mine and to expose more ore, they'd drill some holes in the rock, and they'd put some dynamite in there, and they'd light a fuse. They'd also use trinitrotoluene, which is TNT. And then as some of these tubes of explosives would get older, they'd sweat, and they'd form nitroglycerin, and they'd be really unstable. A shock would make them go off, that kind of thing. This was common. This was common to watch this on television. Now, they don't do that anymore because, heck, it's so gosh darn dangerous. They won't even refer to dynamite and TNT. As a matter of fact, years ago, I had some stumps on the farm, and I wanted to get them out the easy way. And the easy way is you kind of poke a hole under the stump with a long rod, and you put some dynamite in there, and you put a fuse on it, and you light it, and you run. And then, boom, the stump kind of lifts out of the ground. You just take your tractor and just pull it out of the way because it's been loosened with dynamite. That was common, very common. So a farmer could just go to the farm supply store and say, I need X number of sticks of dynamite, and they'd sell it to you. Not anymore. Now, it's difficult getting ammonium nitrate as fertilizer because if you mix it with other ingredients, and I'm not going to say what they are, and I've never done it, but I've read about it. Now, you've read about Timothy McVeigh. It was common. It was common to go and buy, a high concentration of fertilizer, which had a lot of ammonium nitrate in it. That's why fertilizer in the bag, after it gets old, it smells like ammonia. Because it has ammonia in it. Well, I don't think, that's just my opinion. Now, what do I know? I'm just a farmer. But I'm looking at the images, and I looked at the blast, and appeared to me like there were multiple blasts. There was some orange, some brown. I'm talking about the smoke. There's some black smoke, and white smoke, and orange smoke, and yellow smoke. That's all from different materials being on fire. So there was an explosion, and then there was the ensuing fire. And there was a grain silo. Now, a grain silo is a pretty massive structure, pretty tall. I'm guessing, 80 to 100 feet in the air. And there are these concrete cylinders. They're all stuck together. So think of it like tubes made out of concrete, and they put grain in it. Well, it blew the sides off these concrete grain silos. This is reinforced concrete with rebar, reinforced bars of iron embedded in the concrete. Blew the face right off it. Windows were blown out miles away, about 15 miles away. So is this really the kind of thing that, Timothy McVeigh allegedly did? Really? I think it was way more than that. And I think when if it ever gets out, people are going to find out that there's, what's all this radiation that's resulting from this fertilizer that blew up? What is that all about? That's just my take on it. I don't believe that it was just one explosion. I believe it was many explosions. I don't believe that there were just 100 people killed. As sad as that is, I think there's way more. I think there are people that were vaporized that will never be found. And probably say that, well, they're in the rubble. Can't find them. They're in the rubble. I think they just turned into water vapor and little bits, little atomic-sized bits. I mean, I'm sorry to be graphic like that, but I think that's what happened. If you look at that explosion that blew out windows 15 miles away, obviously, it was pretty seriously intense at the epicenter of that explosion. Well, it looks like we're going into our first break, and we're talking about the explosion in Beirut. And headlines call it Beirut's Hiroshima. And they say it, now they're saying it's 1/5 the size of the bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima in Japan in 1945. We'll be right back. Class, today it's Guineith Isaacs live in Australia. We're going to be talking about the lockdown in Australia, in the urban and looks like it's coming to the countryside today. We'll be talking about that. And tomorrow it's me with tips from, since you mentioned cars, my unfinished, unpublished, not-for-sale book. And Friday it will be Kathy talking about how to buy clothes, what to look for in terms of quality. Textiles, what to look for in terms of quality. What an eye-opener that's going to be. And then followed by Bert Bertonis, who's going to be talking about the technical aspects of the event called the Carrington event in 1859 and how absolutely it is more deadly than the coronavirus combined with the corona panic. If we have another one of those, and if it hits hits us, it will be way worse than the coronavirus plus the corona panic. That would be a walk in the park compared to what would happen if we had a Carrington event. I'm talking about a massive solar eruption from the sun. Gwyneth, your comments about anything I said regarding the explosions with an S, explosions in Beirut?
Well, there was definitely more than one of them. And there was definitely, I managed to see at least 3 types of explosions there, you know. I am of the opinion, okay, this is just my humble opinion, that it was probably a hydrogen bomb, a suitcase nuke that was set off by the other explosions, because hydrogen, radioactive hydrogen is not just radioactive, it's also explosive, okay, because it has all of the thing about radioactive isotopes, they have all the regular attributes of their non-radioactive counterparts. So radioactive hydrogen is explosive, just like regular hydrogen is, okay? And whereas uranium-235 and 238, they're poisonous, but they're not explosive in their, well, I mean, they don't have a non-radioactive form, but they're not explosive. So that's why a conventional atomic bomb is a lot more stable than a hydrogen bomb. A hydrogen bomb, you could set off TNT next to an atomic bomb, and as long as the 2 masses of uranium-235 were not blown together to make a supercritical mass, then it's not going to go off. But with a hydrogen bomb, because the hydrogen by its very nature, the radioactive hydrogen by its very nature is explosive, that's a whole other set of problems, and I think that that's probably what happened here, is that the radioactive hydrogen exploded, and then with the extra input of energy, it somehow went into a nuclear reaction as well. Does that make sense, Vincent? That's just my hypothesis there.
And there was also some eyewitnesses of airplanes flying over that exact location just before the explosion started. So what does that mean? Anything? I don't know. It's just more information to think about. I have a feeling that there's going to be a massive... I have a feeling there's going to be a massive cover-up over this. I don't think anyone really wants to admit an attack. I think Lebanon saying, "Nah, it was just fertilizer," and it went bang. I think there's more to it than that. I really do. Guineith, I want to mention one other thing. Last week I said that when a rocket blasted off in the past from Cape Canaveral, one of these Atlas V large rockets, the weather would change dramatically in a few days. I said that. I said, let's see what happens. Well, there was a hurricane that might have touched land.
Wow.
That was in process. Well, I'll tell you what, it was massive amount of damage. So some people could say, well, Vinny just dies, a hurricane coming in. That's what happened. Well, this is the biggest storm to hit the East Coast since Superstorm Sandy. So I mentioned that just watch the weather, a few days after this rocket launch that we had last week. And I mentioned that years ago I talked to my neighbors and I'd say, have you noticed that? No, that's normal stuff. 5 inches of flooding in the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey. Massive weather changes. So here we've had 90 plus degree weather, like for a month and a half, 2 months. Now it's in the 50s. Okay. So very quick, like a 40 degree delta Fahrenheit here. And so some people would say, well, no, the storm was coming and, you just tried to capitalize on that. Well, I think it's way worse. That's my opinion than it would have been if there weren't a rocket launch. Because 3 days or so after a rocket launch, the weather goes crazy. So what happened? Well, in the mid-Atlantic, Northeast, 3.5 million people are without electricity. Massive flooding, big problems. Cross-connecting the freshwater supply with the sewage systems. And, if you're driving along and you're driving through flooding, if there's pressure from the flooding, it can pop the lid off a manhole. Manhole cover can be popped off. If that happens and you're driving, you have no idea if there's a manhole opening beneath the flooding or not. And you can drive right into one of those and destroy your car. Literally. So you have to be crazy to drive through a flooded area, thinking, I remember this street, everything's good. You got to be crazy to do that. But people do it all the time. And sometimes they get washed away in a current and die. But I guess they know better than we do. So I'm talking about Isaiah, the superstorm that came through yesterday and the day before. Guineith, any comments about the rocket launches? Have you noticed a correlation with space launches, rockets blasting off, and the weather changing a couple days later, 2, 3, 4 days later? Have you noticed that over your lifetime?
I haven't noticed that personally, but I think that it's completely possible because, you've got something going up there and it's putting all sorts of chemicals into the upper atmosphere and into the middle atmosphere and the lower atmosphere too, but it's the middle and the upper atmosphere that really changes things. And, and then you've got all of the radio signals going backwards and forwards. And, electromagnetic frequencies definitely influence, storm activity, because I have noticed that if there's a big lightning storm, you'll often get a really, really huge lightning strike, and then the rain will just come bucketing down like it was Noah's flood or something. And it's usually just after a really, really big lightning strike. So I think that it's plausible that a rocket launch could cause weather changes, both because of the changes that happen in the atmosphere, because of the exhaust product, and also because of the electromagnetic communications upsetting the ionosphere. And, I think I've discussed on the show before the Cloudbuster device that seeks to correct that particular problem, and it was invented by Wilhelm Reich, I think, over 100 years ago. People have been using them for over 100 years to correct the weather in their local areas, and they absolutely work, and they work by adjusting the electromagnetic frequencies in the ionosphere. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah, and that's what we've been doing in Alaska. We had HAARP decades ago, and we've been adjusting the electromagnetic fields intentionally. And so, and then we figured out, hey, if we put metal into the atmosphere, we can really make this thing work great. And so that's one of the things that we've been doing. I wanted to mention, so bringing this back down to earth, what does this mean to us? Well, I've made a few phone calls to some of our class, and I said, if you ever wanted to have some kind of device to help you ride out one of these storms if you are impacted by an electrical supply outage, local area power failure, if you want to call it that, small grid down situation. Well, you could buy an inverter, and it's a device that will convert 12 volts DC like a car battery, and it will convert it to 120 volts AC. So if you have the right size, you can plug in lights, You can plug in your computer if you had to. You can plug in your router. You could plug in your refrigerator. Now, these can't run everything because you're only starting with a car battery or a pickup truck battery. But they can make your life more pleasant, if you have one. Now, I believe that there's going to be a run on them. That's just my feeling. I can't prove it until after the fact. But I believe that people are going to say, boy, I need a generator. But generators use so much fuel, typically a half a gallon to a gallon per hour for a gasoline model, that people are going to say, well, what else can I do? And what about the noise? Well, look up an inverter. You're going to need one about 1,500 real watts. Now, the Chi-Coms lie. They lie about the wattage. So if it looks really tiny and it says it's a lot of wattage, like 1,500 to 2,000, well, it's not. Okay, they're lying. So make sure if you do get one, you test it right away. And if you don't like it, and if you think they're lying, return it. Okay, so make sure you have return privileges if you buy it on the internet. Next thing, I believe gas cans are going to disappear as well because people are going to buy them for their generators. They're going to say, wow, we didn't have enough fuel. We need more gas cans. I'm talking about the red ones. And another thing that is disappearing for sure, and I verified this, is water filtration systems. I used to be able to go to eBay and used to be able to go to Amazon and type in ProPure stainless steel water filter. They're gone. They're gone. There's not one available for sale. Not one. Or at least there wasn't yesterday. And so I tried to help some of our class get some. Because we're a dealer. I don't talk about that. I don't try to sell anything, but I can buy them. And I can get them at, dealer prices. Well, they're not available. I got a message from the factory, ProPure. They're not accepting orders on stainless steel products. Now, what does that mean? Now, I don't know for sure, but I can guess. I can guess that, I don't think we make the stainless steel canisters for these filter systems in this country. And I'm thinking they come from India and or China. Well, we're not getting any more. So I think we can get the filters. But if you think about it, here's what it is. The spigot comes from one company. The silicone gaskets come from another company. The stainless steel upper and lower canisters come from another company. I'm talking about if you're going to manufacture them, okay? Then the filter shell comes from another company. The filter plastic stem comes from another company. The activated carbon comes from another company. So you have all these companies that produce the individual components that go into the final assembly. And you take any one of those ingredients out and you've got nothing. You can't sell a finished product. Like, if you don't have the box to ship, a finished product, how do you sell it? If you don't have the lid, or you don't have the knob, or you don't have the spigot, take any one ingredient out and you can't sell a finished product. Well, I think that's what happened. I think the stainless steel is the problem right now. But eventually, when we start manufacturing here in the United States again, if that ever happens, then we won't be dependent on other countries. You can go to Ohio or Kansas or wherever they manufacture and stamp out these stainless steel parts. So that's what we have to do. We have to get back to manufacturing in this country. And that's what the Corona panic is going to help resolve. The fact that we don't want to be dependent on other countries. So I wanted to tell you that water filtration systems are in short supply, if you can get them at all. Next thing I wanted to tell you is if you have a whole house water filter, it's a 10-inch cartridge typically. There are different sizes, but the main one is 10 inches. 10 inches tall, 2.5 inches in diameter, 5 micron. Take a look. See how much they went up in price. They doubled and tripled. You can still get them. You can buy a case of them for about $60-something. Case of 50. That's going to be your best deal. But if you want them, you ought to get them like right now. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because they've gone up in price. If you want to buy one or two, you're going to find out they're like $10 each. That's crazy. They only last a few months. Actually, you're supposed to change them every month. So you need 12 a year if you do that. Gwyneth, back to you. I just wanted to share that. That's where we are with the supply chain right now. We said it was going to happen. Here it is. Oh, by the way, where do all these filters come from? Where do all of these water filters come from? I'm not talking about ProPure. I'm talking about the kind for your whole house water filter. Where do they come from? China. All of them. All of them. Let me say it a different way. All of them. Guineith?
Well, I think that it would be really handy if people figured out how to make activated charcoal. Because if you can work out how to make activated charcoal, then you can turn a 5-gallon bucket into a water filter. So that's just a handy tip and trick for people who might be out there. I'm sure there's videos on YouTube of how to make activated charcoal. There is a bit of a trick to it, which I'm sure that you have sort of researched this topic, Vincent. But that also goes for recharging your existing water filter. Normally they come with a canister which has the activated charcoal in it, right? If you can figure out how to get that canister open, you may be able to replace the activated charcoal with activated charcoal you've manufactured yourself at home if you know how to make it. Does that sound plausible, Vincent?
Well, absolutely it does. And as a matter of fact, I had that very discussion with Bert Bertonis yesterday. And I called him up and I said, I just want to let you know what I've discovered about the supply chain. I'm talking about the water filtration systems. And I suggested that if he had one of those pitcher types, like they have a lot of different brand names, but like a pitcher that you fill up with water and the water filters through a small cartridge, I suggested that he obtain some activated charcoal and look at taking that filter cartridge apart and refilling it. Dump out the activated charcoal that's in there, when it's consumed or when it becomes full of the elements and the metals that it has removed from the water. When it becomes saturated, then dump that out, dump out the activated charcoal and refill it and put it back together. It's exactly what I said, exactly what you're saying, Guineith. So that's something you can do, class, if you have like a Brita or, one of those water pitchers. We're getting down to...
Water filter, a jug.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, a pitcher or a jug. And you can get a ProPure water filter element, and you can drill a hole in a plastic bucket, 3-gallon bucket, 5-gallon bucket, and you can pour some water in it, let drip, 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 drip through. Make sure it's clean, make sure it's never been used for anything other than food or it's brand new. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Guineith, what is happening in Australia with the lockdown of Melbourne?
Oh my God, it is just going crazy. I am so glad that I'm not there. I live in country Victoria, but I have friends who live in Melbourne, and they bought, bug-out locations not very far from where I live, and most of those bug-out locations are empty. They didn't even get a chance to get to their bug-out location because it all just locked down really quickly. They said that they were going to close the roads at a certain time, and I think that they've actually closed the roads a lot earlier. And all of the roads in and out of Melbourne are now closed. They're not allowing anybody in or out of Melbourne. They have a curfew at 8 p.m. at night, and we're heading into summertime, and within a month or two, it'll still be light at 8 p.m. at night here in Australia where I am. And, it's absolutely jaw-dropping. He is, and I need to put some perspective on this, that you would think that there was just, body carts on the street and all of that. The disease is real, but it doesn't seem to be affecting Australians as badly as a lot of other parts of the world. You're getting, 3 people dying a day, 6 people dying a day, and you look at them, the figures are published in the newspapers. They're like 60, 70, 80, and 90-year-olds, and they're living in nursing homes. So they're older people, they've got comorbidities, they're living in nursing homes, and there's like 3 people dying, 6 people dying, maybe 7, maybe 5 each day in a city of 5 million people. It's insanity. It's not, it really is. It is a real disease, but here in Victoria, it's really no worse than a flu season. It really, that is how it actually is. But like I say, it is a real disease. It did come out of a level 4 lab, but for whatever reason, I think probably because we do get so much sunlight here, even in the winter. And I was describing to you, Vincent, that we're heading into spring here, and our spring is like your summer. And our summer is like your really, really bad summer, but for us it's totally normal, And then we go into autumn, which is like, once again, your regular summer. And then we go into winter, which is like your spring or your fall. Yeah, that's how our seasonal cycle is. So the climate is a lot milder, there's a lot more sunlight, and a lot of people, especially in rural areas, they have water tanks, and the water tanks are filled from corrugated zinc roofs. So that means that you've got a lot of zinc in the water, and it means that you've got the sunlight, which it produces the D3, and I think that combination, and also we eat a lot more fresh fruit and vegetables here in Australia. So you've got a lot more vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, and a lot of other vitamins in our fruits and vegetables. We're better nourished people. We get more sunlight. We have more zinc in our diet, in our drinking water. And I think that for that reason, we are not being as heavily impacted by this coronavirus, but that is not stopping Dictator Dan from shutting down our entire economy for the sake of this coronavirus. When 3 people in one day in a city of 5 million people are dying, and they are almost inevitably over the age of 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. These are the people that are dying. This is what the details that's being published on the internet and on the newspaper and in his own press conferences. So, this is not some sort of conspiracy theory. This is the actual statistics of who, and he's going crazy. He's saying masks in all supermarkets. These masks cause hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen, too much nitrogen and too much CO2 and not enough oxygen, which causes brain cells to die. It causes insanity, and it causes a weakened immune system. It's almost like that he wants for there to be a massive, massive, massive disease outbreak here, and I think that he's using it as an excuse for tyranny, that he's got the whole of Melbourne in level 4 lockdown, or basically a police state where you're not allowed to go more than about 3 miles from your home. And and I think that he's got the same thing planned for rural Victoria as well. And in rural Victoria, we've got almost no cases, and yet he's going to do the same thing here.
Hold that thought. We're going into a break. And do you think they're going to have door-to-door searches? Tell us when we come back. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Guineith, do you think that people in costumes are going to be knocking on doors in rural southern Australia just to say hi and make sure everybody's safe and make sure that you are not positive with coronavirus, COVID-19? Do you think that's coming?
I know that they're doing it in metropolitan Melbourne, but whether they will do that in country Victoria or not is another question, because around here, certainly, the blue team is really hated. And, there's a lot of people who are not going to are going to get pretty upset if they just decide to force their way onto people's property, you know. And I don't think that they would be too willing to do that, to take that chance, because there are a lot of firearms out there still in country Victoria, both registered and unregistered, just generally speaking, okay? And I think that they know that, and I think that, you know, that might be a chance that they're not so willing to take. I think that all of their lockdown Bravo Sierra will be a lot harder to enforce in country areas of Victoria, and I don't think they're going to be so bothered about it. Because, to be perfectly honest, I used to work as a door-to-door canvasser, and I avoided rural areas. And I was actually a charity fundraiser, and I would go to country towns, but I wouldn't go to farm areas because there just simply wasn't the payoff. You know, you didn't collect the donations that you needed to collect to make it worth your while. And it was, you know, it was a long time between properties. So I don't think that they will do that. I think that the risk to them with getting some farmer who is irate, who decides that, you know, he doesn't want to see them, who decides that they are a risk to him and his family, and who decides to, you know, that he's going to lose his temper today. I think that they are aware of those risks. They may go to the country towns, but I don't think that they're going to go to farming areas because of that reason. And if they do, I can foresee that these problems are going to happen, and that it's only a matter of time before they find somebody who loses their temper at them. And I need to point out here, just for people who might be listening, I'm not necessarily talking about me. I'm talking about people in general, because, yeah, they've given me a hard time, but there's a lot more people whose tempers are a lot shorter than mine out there in country Victoria, you know. For example, you've got a lot of people who really, really like Ned Kelly and who really, really think that the Eureka Stockade people were heroes. And both of these groups really hate the Victoria Police. They know that they were corrupt 100 and 150 and 120 years ago, and that they're still corrupt today, that nothing has changed. And I think that they are going to, they're going to be a lot more reluctant to, you know, do what they want to do in these sorts of areas. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah. Here in the United States, I have in front of me a mailer from the United States Census 2020, the U.S. Census Bureau. And it's a real nice postcard. It says, "Dear resident, complete the 2020 census today!" Exclamation point. It goes on to say, to protect the health of the public during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, Census Bureau interviewers have had limited direct contact with the public until now. Interviewers will begin visiting homes that have not responded in August. Respond today, and we will not need to send an interviewer to your door to collect your answers. If you've already completed your 2020 census questionnaire, thank you. Signed, Stephen D. Dillingham, Director. So, a little different here in the United States. They're willing to come out to rural America and interview you about, you know, how many people you have in your house and what where they come from and how many of them speak Mexican, and or how many are Mexican, or how many speak Spanish, or they've got a lot of questions. Who makes decisions, and they want complete dossiers on all of us. So they're willing to risk, becoming infected with the coronavirus just to make sure that they've got a complete entry in your file in their database. People are losing their minds. There was a worker who was at Burger King who got punched in the face because the chicken nuggets were too spicy. That's the kind of stuff that's going on. So when you talk about people losing their tempers, how is that possible? How is it possible that anybody would think that the person bringing the nuggets, the chicken nuggets from the fryer, putting them in a little container and putting them in a bag and selling them to a customer across the counter, how is it possible that anyone would think that that person that works for Burger King would be involved in the construction, the manufacturing, and the spices of chicken nuggets? How is that possible? Well, it's becoming more and more dangerous to be an employee at the low edge of the economic spectrum. So if you're working at a fast food joint, customers losing their tempers seem to want to take it out on those employees, like the people who sell coffee. So here it is. Headline, Daily Mail. Burger King customer, 21, hits worker after accusing colleague of making his nuggets too spicy. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Wow.
That's where we are. Here that was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So people are losing their minds. They're beating up employees. They're shoving down people at Walmart who are saying, would you please wear a mask? I don't understand. Let me just say it this way, class. If a store has a policy and they say on the door, masks required, if that's their policy, there is no reason that you should go in that store without a mask. Okay? No reason. If you think that if there's a medical reason, don't go in that store. If you think you don't want to wear it just because you don't want to wear it, don't go in that store. Just like someone who has a home and someone walks in and lights up a cigarette or a cigar in the home. Where do people think they get the right to do this? They have no right to light up in your house. None. Just like they don't have a right to come into your store without a mask if you want your customers to wear a mask. These customers don't own the store. They're guests. And the rules are up to the store. And if you don't like the rules, take your money and go someplace else. There is no reason to accost the little people who are just trying to do their job. Now, whether you agree with it or not, you don't have a right to beat up the help. You don't. But that's where we are. We've lost our minds and we've lost our tempers, and it's only going to get worse. Any comments, Gwyneth? Do you agree or disagree with what I said?
Well, I think I do agree with you. I think that if you don't agree with a mask policy in a store, that you shouldn't shop there. That if enough people refuse to shop there, they will soon change their mind, because they'll think to themselves, oh my gosh, look, we're losing so many customers because nobody wants to wear the stupid mask, and they're avoiding our store because we've got this no mask rule. And that, the laws of supply and demand in capitalism will soon do away with their no mask rule if enough of us decide that we don't want to wear the stupid little mask. And when I say stupid little mask, I mean it because they don't stop the coronavirus particles from spreading. And that has been, I mean, even Mr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci, has said it. He said it in speeches in the past. He said they don't stop the transmission of the virus. And now he's doing a double speak and saying, but you've all got to wear the mask to stop the transmission of the virus. What the heck? You know, will you make up your mind, Mr. Fauci? Do they stop the transmission of the virus or don't they stop the transmission of the virus? Because we've got you on publicly broadcast speeches saying that these masks don't stop the transmission of the virus, and now all of a sudden you're saying that we all have to wear these masks to stop the transmission of the virus. You know, it's pure double speak.
Let's talk about that for a second. So let's say it was the 1932 here in the United States, and we're in Kansas, and there's a dust storm. You can, and people used to wear neckerchiefs. That's what they called them. And handkerchiefs. Okay. And the cowboys would wear them around their neck. And if they were in a dust storm, they put it over their face so they wouldn't get silicosis, dust in the lungs. So now, does it stop the dust? Well, it depends on what you mean. If you mean, does it 100% stop the dust? No. Does it stop most of the dust? Yes. Okay. So they're fine shades of, do the masks stop all the particles, all the virus? No. Some, yes. And Guineith, I want to share this with the class. I guess we're going to have to do it when we come back. We're going into another break. Silver. Silver is exploding right now. That would be with a capital. That'd be with a capital E. Silver is now at $27 an ounce.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you where it was 12 days ago. You probably won't believe it. We'll be right back with Guineith Isaacs. I'm Vin Finelli. So on July 17th, the price of silver was $19 an ounce, 19. I'm using round numbers because this is radio. It makes it easier. 12 days later, it was $26 this morning. Now it's $27. A few hours later. That's a 42% jump from in 12 days, from $19 to $27. Oh. Now I'm not saying hurry, get silver. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that there seems to be a rush to safety. There's no safety in manipulated securities. There's no safety in the stock market. You can't say, well, I have X number of shares of General Motors and those 3 chairs in the cafeteria are mine. You can't point to any specific thing that you own if you own stock. But if you have precious metals, like gold or silver, and you take possession of them, you've got it. It's yours. And I want to suggest that I'm not suggesting that you do this, but if you decide to get precious metals, or if you have in the past, that you get them under your roof. Don't leave them in a safety deposit box entrusted to other people you don't know and probably don't even like to control your wealth. Make sure that you have it under your roof or under your control or wherever you want to put it, but not where you have to go to some business to say, hey, listen, when are you guys open anyway? Because I want to get into that box where they have a key and you have a key. No. You don't want any keys except maybe your own keys. And, people say, well, it's so expensive. Where would I put, gold or silver? Where would I put it, for safety? These are the same people that have an engagement ring. These are the same people that have a wedding band. These are the same people that have earrings. They know where to put those, but they don't know where to put, gold and silver, rounds, coins, numismatics, etc. So Max's law, buy the best, pay cash, take delivery. You have to take delivery, or it's not yours. Any comments, Guineith?
I would absolutely agree with everything that you've just said. I have owned gold coins and silver coins in the past, and I see that they are a fantastic hedge against currency fluctuation. Let's just say that's both inflation and deflation, because the example that's used often is in Roman times, it took 1 ounce of silver to buy a good suit. And today, a good suit costs around about 1 ounce of, 1 ounce of gold. I think I said silver. 1 ounce of gold was the price of a good suit in Roman times. This is like 2,000 years ago. And the price of a good suit is approximately the price of 1 ounce of gold today. So we're talking about $1,500 to $1,800, right, Vincent? That'll buy you a good suit. Well, it was the same price in Roman times, and it's been more or less the same price all through history. And
and through the Great Depression, the 1920s, the 1930s, same thing.
Yeah,
Guineith, I'm looking at eBay right now. I'm on eBay right now, and I just typed in silver dollar. Okay, so when I was growing up back in the 1950s, you could get a silver dollar for $1. You could go to the bank and you could say, "Can I have one of those pieces of paper with George Washington on it? It has a number 1." Or you could say, "Tell you what, forget that. I'd rather have one of those round U.S. minted coins that's about roughly 0.77 ounces of silver. Could I have one of those instead?" Now, if you had the piece of paper with George Washington on it, it's still worth $1. If you kept that silver dollar, which was the same amount, on eBay, they're selling them for over $30 a piece right now.
Yeah.
For $1. We'll be right back. I mentioned before that I believe that there's going to be a run on water filtration products. And I mentioned that the cartridges, sometimes they are these white, it looks like a yarn wound around a core. They're about 10 inches long, 2.5 inches diameter. They have a hole through the center of them. The whole house filters, you can get them just a spun poly without the string winding around and around and around. I'm looking at the price right now of 6 of them, $20.23. I'm looking at a 12-pack of these whole house water filters. They're just white. There's no carbon dust. They're not pleated paper with carbon or activated charcoal. Just the sediment filter. $36.70 for 12. I'm looking at a 2-pack at $11. And so I just want to tell you that the price has gone up. And I believe it's gone up because they are from China and the supply is down and the demand is up. So I just wanted to let you know that if you wanted to get them, you ought to do your research quickly. You should be able to still find some if you want to buy a case of 50 for just a little over $60, like $61. And you may want to check Amazon and you may want to check eBay. But if you do buy them, they all come from China, and I suggest that you look for ones that say NSF. That would be potable water. That would be, I think, National Sanitation Foundation. I think that's what that stands for, NSF. So consider that. Guineith, any comments?
Okay. I would like to just make a comment with regard to the coronavirus. Just to clarify something, I wanted to say this earlier, but I didn't get the chance. Some people might be under the impression out in the class that I don't think this is a real disease. I absolutely think this is a real disease. It is a real disease. there's a lot of people out there who are saying this is not a real disease. They are very, very, very wrong. This is a real disease. It comes from a level 4 lab. It's a Frankenstein of a thing. It's extremely dangerous. Okay? I believe that it's going to make its way into people's lymphatic systems and bone marrow if they get a dose of it, and that it will white ant their immune system. And that between 2 and 3 and 5 years down the track, that they could end up becoming extremely ill. And there has been scientific research which has been published, which has said that this virus, this COVID-19 virus, seems to be finding its way into people's bone marrow and lymphatic systems. So, it's because it has around about 22 or 23% of HIV genetic material in the virus. I just needed to clarify that, Vincent, just in case there was anyone in the class who thought that I thought that it wasn't a serious disease. It comes out of a level 4 lab, and they don't play with Lego blocks. But the response, I've always said from day one, what will end up being more dangerous than the disease itself will be the response from the government and the cascading domino effect of the virus. And that is what I was wanting to get across to the class earlier, is that it seems to be that every single thing that they are recommending, that the government is recommending, will ultimately end up weakening your immune system. And the things that will strengthen your immune system, like, for instance, going outside and getting fresh air and exercise, and zinc supplementation, hydroxychloroquine or quinine ingestion, let's just say, and vitamin C. That these are all things that if you go mentioning them, you might get your video banned on YouTube. If you make a YouTube video and you mention about quinine, and you mention about vitamin D3, and you mention about zinc, and you mention about vitamin C, you might even get your Facebook page banned, or you might get your YouTube channel banned, because these are the things that are really effective against this virus. And personally, I've been having one gin and tonic every night with some orange juice in it. And it's, like I say, it's not something I go overboard on. And my son, I give him a dose of tonic water with no alcohol in it because he's not drinking age. But he gets a glass of tonic water with orange juice in it, and mineral supplements as well, because he needs some other mineral supplements as well. But like I said, we have a zinc roof, so there's zinc in our drinking water. And I just thought I needed to clarify that, Vincent.
Okay, very good. And you used the term, I believe, quinine. And class, that would be the Australian pronunciation for what we would call quinine. So quinine water, like gin and tonic type. The tonic part is quinine in the United States, quinine in Australia. We've got a caller on one of the lines, and Jason will get to you. All I can see is that someone's on hold, so I don't know who it is, what it's about, or if the call is for us. But if you just stay with us, Jason will get to you. He'll answer the phone, and then I can put you on the air. Guineith, it is National Sanitation Foundation, as I said before, so I suggest that if you're going to buy water filtration systems, that they meet those standards for drinkability, if you want to call that. Next thing,
yes.
I'd like
Absolutely.
to suggest, class, and we've been talking about this for a long time, and I just want to remind you that it's clear to me that the supply chain is breaking. it's clear to me that if you need to get technical support, it's tough. It's tough to get qualified people on the end of a phone to ask them the questions. The first question, the second level question, the third level question. It's hard to get someone who knows what they're doing on the end of the phone for technical support today. It really is. And in that line of thinking, if you think that you need it, whatever it is, I'm not saying want it, but if you think you need it and if you can afford it, I suggest you really think about getting it now while you can. Now, I could be totally wrong and everything will clear up in 20 minutes, but I don't think so. I think the supply chain is breaking more and more every day. And, I was at the dinner table last night. I heard the most unbelievable thing. This shocked me. I'm still aghast. And this happened yesterday. So we're sitting around the dinner table, the Finelli kitchen, and the family's there and we're having dinner. And one of our boys said, yeah. So-and-so is driving an old jalopy. I said, what happened? He had a truck. Well, yeah, he got a 2018 GM truck. Bought it used. And the battery went dead. And he called the dealer and they said, if you touch that thing, then we'll know. If you change that battery and you put in another battery, you will void your warranty.
Wow.
Okay, so when can I have it fixed? Yeah. So when can I have it fixed? The middle of this month, around the 17th. This has been going on for days. This guy bought a used GM truck, thinking that a newer model would be better than an older model. And it has a dead battery. The truck doesn't know what it's doing. It's confused. Got a whole bunch of computers. It's confused. The battery is the diagnosis of the problem. It is the problem. But they will not let him replace it and keep his warranty. So he's kind of scratching his head like, geez, do I want to drive this thing and have no warranty? Or do I want to wait until they get a chance to fix the car or the truck? That's where we are today. Can you imagine that? We're now at the complexity where when the battery quits, you can't replace it and still keep your warranty. Because, well, you might do it wrong. You might hook it up wrong. Wow. There's only two terminals on a battery, positive and negative. That's the truth. And typically, it's almost impossible, not completely impossible, but almost impossible that if you get the same model or the same group size, like batteries come in a standard group size, like there's a 22, and then there's a 22 NF, which would be narrow Ford size 22, and then there'd be a 24 and a 24F, and the F stands for Ford because the terminals are reversed on a Ford versus a regular model, a Group 24 battery. Well, if you get the same exact group size and identifier, it's almost impossible to put the battery in wrong. Almost impossible. Because the terminals are designed and the length of the cables are such that it's hard to cross them. And the positive is a different size from the negative if you have a post, a top post battery. So what I'm saying is we got to the point where we're going to let our vehicles that get confused because of the battery, we're going to let them hold us hostage. Because the warranty will be void if we change the battery ourselves. Can you imagine that? And that's why I keep saying, I wouldn't want a new car. I would not want one. And Rich Sheben has asked me. He said over the years, hey, Vin, privately on the phone, hey, Vin, at what price would you buy a new truck? 30,000? No. 20,000? No. 11,000? No. At what price would you want a new truck? Zero price. I do not want one. Because I can't work on it, and nobody else can either. We finally got a computer here. It arrived in the last couple of days. We had to buy a computer tool. It's about $800. in order to talk to the computers in cars. So you go to step on, like let's say you have a brake line failure. And the salt eats through your brake line. So you put in a new brake line and you go to bleed the brakes. Well, if you have an ABS, automatic brake system, which almost every car does, you can't bleed the brakes. You need a computer tool to bleed the brakes. You just don't pump up the brake, manually the way we used to do it in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. No. You got to have a tool that exercises the computer control for the brake system. Otherwise, the brakes won't work. How much is that tool? Oh, I don't know, $800. It's crazy. There's another computer that controls your air conditioner, and another computer that controls your fuel injection, and another computer that controls your traction. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Glenn in Michigan, welcome.
Hey, Vince, Guineith, thank you very much for taking my call. I wanted to
Sure.
comment. I couldn't get in on the line right away. I want to backtrack maybe 20 minutes when you were talking about silver and gold and the explosion in prices. I've been stacking this stuff for about 8 years or so, and I stacked, you called it silver dollars. I stacked monster boxes of silver eagle. What's really going on out there, because I trade futures also, there is a major divergence between the price of the actual futures contract and what you can actually buy the physical for. In the past, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I used to be able to purchase major quantities for about.
Glenn, could you hold your phone at the same distance while you're speaking, because your voice is going in and out. So just, I don't know if you pace the way I do when I'm on the phone or what you're doing, but if you could just kind of hold still, we'll be able to hear you much better.
I'm hyperactive, just like you. Is this any better?
Well, I don't know. Go ahead. Just try to stay more still, and it'll be better.
Be able to purchase silver eagles for $250 over spot. Now, if you go to eBay, you don't look up silver dollars, or you go to Amazon or whatever, or you go to look to purchase a monster box. It's $10 over spot, which means that the futures contract today is trading for about $27. You can't buy a coin for less than $38 to $41.
Well, the reason I mentioned eBay, just as a rough guide, because some coins sell for less than market price, some sell for more than. So I saw some for $38, $39, $45, and I saw some for less, and that's why I gave a number kind of in the middle. But I do want to say one thing, and I was going to mention a monster box is 500 coins class. And typically they're green, and they've got a strapper on them if they haven't been unopened, and they're worth more if they're unopened than if someone peeked inside and cut the strap. But here's something that I'd like you to consider. Quad 9, meaning 0.9999% pure silver, Canadian maples. The reason I'm mentioning that, if you have two of those, you can make your own colloidal silver, okay? And I don't think there is anything more pure than quad 9 silver. So, of course, you'd want to sterilize it, but you can make your own colloidal silver with that. You don't have to buy a silver wire. So I just wanted to mention that. Look it up on YouTube, how to do it, and you'll need a parts per million tester, and you can buy them from eBay, and it will tell you how many parts per million of colloidal silver you have in your distilled water. I just wanted to mention that. Glenn, please continue.
I agree with you 100%. I've made my own colloidal. It's not very difficult at all. So I think what we're seeing right now, if you look at currencies across the world right now, we're seeing a major declination in the U.S. dollar. The whole market is being held up by only 4 or 5 major tech stocks. The interest rates for mortgages, for example, are the lowest rates in probably 20 years. But here's the problem. Go ahead and try to get a mortgage. You can't, I don't care if you got an 800 credit score, you can't get one. The banks aren't giving it out because they have so much liability on their books right now. So I guess I'm venting a little bit. I concur with most of the things you say, and I just wanted to express my opinion.
Well, what went wrong? How come you don't concur with everything I say? Well, you know,
you are a smart aleck.
Glenn, there's an article that I was going to talk about, quote, Zero Hedge, quote, it's now virtually impossible to get a bank loan as lending standards soar. Exactly what you said. So, yeah, I remember when Bert Bertonis and I invented a really cool thing. It was revolutionary. We were going to get a patent on it. We did something. It was his work, really. Really cool. We went to the bank to get a little bit of money, maybe $50,000, which is nothing when you're in manufacturing. And we couldn't get it. It was like, yeah, I know you guys invented anti-gravity. Yeah, I know. Do you have any collateral? I mean, that's what it's like. Glenn, by the way, I wanted to ask you, I saw your call come in on my call screen here in Missouri. Okay. So the phone's ringing in Minnesota at GCN. I can see the phone's ringing. It looks like it got answered by an automated system, and then you were put on hold. Then our engineer Jason he's doing many things at the same time. So that's why you were on hold for so long. I would have answered it, except I had no idea if it was, somebody dialing for dollars or selling screen doors or a wrong number. I had no idea. Otherwise, because it just showed that.
I would have done the same thing.
So, because this is national radio. Yeah. Hey, Glenn, don't be a stranger. I thank you so much for volunteering your information about precious metals. I really appreciate it. Guineith Isaacs, thank you so much for all your calls. In class, I talk to Guineith virtually every day, literally. She calls me from Australia and gives me the updates. Guineith, thank you for sharing what's happening in Australia.